JT, and welcome in on YouTube, on Twitter, probably on Facebook and all the other platforms we have here. Thrilled to be here. And I love the opportunity to talk live about sports, instantly react to sports, review what happened. And we got a great sponsor, Modelo. Modelo, proud partner of my podcast here on YouTube. And they are the number one beer in America right now. How about that? You know how they got there? Hard work, perseverance, and the fighting spirit of Modelo. We're going to have a lot of proud partners here, a lot of my radio partners stepping in. And my goal here, as I talked to my son, was to try to get a platform for me at night because I've been on the radio at night longer than anyone in sports talk radio, 27 years. But I'm doing a lot more daytime content Sunday night on Mad Dog Sports Radio. And I figure a couple of nights a week I'll jump on YouTube here and we'll throw it on Twitter to try to react to what's happening in sports and get something consistent going. So we'll have something cool here, hopefully down the road again, and we can build it up. And then the most important thing here from you, get your reaction in a live chat on Twitter at JT the Brick, or jump on into the chat on YouTube and we can talk back and forth here because I'm not used to talking to people. Most of the shows I do, other than my podcast with Tom Looney, I'm always solo. I'm talking fast. I'm taking calls. So it's going to take me a little bit to get used to this format, slow down a little bit, and have a good time talking to you. So again, thanks for following us on this platform. Keep it here on YouTube, JT the Brick, and on all my other platforms as we open this up. All right, there's a lot of news coming up in the NFL Week 1. I'll get to the scores and the moving lines coming up, but I want to begin with college football because there's the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to college football and what we saw here in Week 1. And the ugly, I'm going to start off with, is the fact that a lot of these powerhouse schools play nobodies Week 1, and they just come out of the gate in these blowout games that shouldn't be played. I am a believer going forward in a true kickoff classic, but not one. Not a kickoff classic where you see Florida State and LSU, but you see 3 or 4 games of that magnitude. You got one game where I'm based here in Vegas at Allegiant Stadium. You can put one in Miami and Orlando, put one in the Midwest, throw a game up in Cleveland, and then do something in the South to keep everybody in the South engaged. But I'm sick and tired of Alabama or Georgia or some of these teams in the SEC opening up with a cupcake game that does nothing other than pay the beatdown school for their student athletes to get embarrassed and dominated so a team could start off 1-0 and 2-0. And we saw a bunch of those games. Again, I mentioned Alabama. I mentioned Georgia. I'm going through the list here. I got no problem with Notre Dame and Navy. That's a long-term rivalry. Utah, Florida. Florida's fallen from grace. Utah won that game 24-11 as we take a look at this. And I look at some of the other games, they just shouldn't have happened. Ohio State played Indiana, no problem with that in a conference game. But Alabama, Middle Tennessee, USC, Nevada, Nevada wasn't bad a couple of years ago. Penn State, West Virginia. Penn State won that game and went over the total at 38-15. Washington beat Boise State. A good football. Boise State was a hell of a program over the last decade. They were no slouch. They played in big bowl games, and Washington's a top 10 team. But look at some of these other scores that we saw Week 1. Oregon over Portland State, 81-7. That's a joke. That game never should be played as Oregon breaks their scoring record, and they should be embarrassed by that. Kansas State over Southeast Missouri, 45-0. That was an awful game to take a look at here. Even my son's alma mater, Oklahoma, playing Arkansas State, 73-0. And maybe the one that took the cake, Ole Miss, 73-7 over Mercer. How do you think those Mercer kids feel? Think they feel proud? Think their parents are excited that the school got a payday when none of the players got a payday? None of them. None of the players on Mercer are making any money with name, image, and likeness. And a good game, a really strong game that I wanted to get to with Coach Prime in Colorado beating TCU 45-42. That was the huge takeaway of Week 1. That was the game that everybody wanted to talk about because Deion had his team ready. And they were a heavy underdog, and they went into a hostile environment in Fort Worth and beat TCU by 3. Deion's son played great at quarterback. I mean, absolutely fantastic. And now Colorado, do you fade him against Nebraska? Because Matt Rule lost his first game to Minnesota? Or do you think this is going to be a program that continues to keep winning? That's going to be a storyline that we keep an eye on. So for the teams that scheduled a decent, solid game, congratulations. For the teams that wanted a cupcake right out of the game, right out of the gate, that's disgraceful. And for all those smaller teams that are no longer really going to matter, we're seeing the fall of the Pac 12. We're seeing teams jump from conference to conference. We're seeing the loss of historic rivalries. That's just the way it's going to be. We're going to have more teams in the college football playoff going forward, and this country loves a good playoff. But we're going to see a lot of other teams become battering rams, get embarrassed. Players are just going to go to small schools because they can't play in the SEC. They're not good enough for the Big 12, and all they're going to be is punching bags for these schools early in the season. So I'm happy college football is back here. I'd just like to see more competitive games going forward. If you got an opinion on that, hit me up on Twitter or X at JT the Brick. All right, let's jump into the NFL and take a look at week one as we get rolling here. And I think it's a really important week one for a lot of reasons here. The NFL is fabulous because week one matters as much as week 14, 15, or 16. All of these games are weighted equally. The loss of one game could be the difference between missing the playoffs, getting home field advantage, being a wild card team, or being a wild card team on the road. So it's hard. And week one, I've always thought about it this way. I worked for the Raiders for 25 years. You want to have a game week one at home, if you can get it, against an inferior opponent and get that first victory. But this week, there are a lot of road favorites who are going to be in a tough spot because they don't want to drop a game early. And I think some of those home teams that are underdogs are going to be in a pretty good chance to maybe shock the world. We'll start off with the Chiefs and Lions. That game is Thursday night on NBC. That's the kickoff of the season. Kansas City wins the Super Bowl, so they'll have their flag ceremony, their banner ceremony, and they deserve that game. But we found out earlier today that Travis Kelce has a hyperextended knee. So Kelce's one of the greatest tight ends. He has a chance, along with Rob Gronkowski and just a few players, to possibly be the greatest tight end of all time. No need to play him in this game. Kansas City has got a lot of issues happening right now with their team. They did not have a great preseason. Andy Reid played Patrick Mahomes, played the starters there, and now to find Kelce getting hurt at a practice before the start of Thursday night, Lions got a really good chance to come in as a road dog. I know a lot of sharps in town here in Vegas are going to bet the Lions on the money line. Currently, Kansas City is a 5-point favorite, as that number has a chance to go down again. I like the Chiefs to win the game. I think the Lions under Dan Campbell are a vastly improved team, but overall, I'm not buying into the Lions being a juggernaut. They've been owned by Green Bay for a long, long time. Before that, the Bears were able to own Detroit. You know, Detroit's one of the worst run franchises in North American sports history. The Ford family has done an awful job with that franchise. Just terrible. But now their fans are engaged, and a lot of people are pulling for Dan Campbell. So I like the Lions to cover that spread, but I'll go with Kansas City to win it. Now some of the other games coming up Sunday, September 10th. We'll go through the early schedule. Panthers at Falcons. Panthers are going to debut Bryce Young at quarterback here. And like all young quarterbacks, he should struggle early. The Falcons got a pretty good roster here. Atlanta's a 3.5-point favorite here. I just think we're going to see the Panthers in a division where New Orleans probably has the best chance to win with Derek Carr in that division. I think the Falcons are going to open up at home and really try to make a statement here. Arthur Smith cannot afford to lose to the Panthers at home with a quarterback who's never played in an NFL game. So the Falcons have got to find a way to flex their muscles out of the gate this year and make a statement. I think they'll do that. I think they'll beat the Panthers and cover the spread. We'll move to the Bengals and Browns, where Joe Burrow didn't play again. You didn't see him at all. Didn't see him at all in the preseason as he got banged up early, but they're trying to get him ready to go. The Bengals are a 2.5-point favorite on the road. The Browns are one of the teams I like a lot this year. Spent a lot last 2 years talking about Deshaun Watson on my radio shows and his transgressions and his bad personal decisions. But he's healthy and ready to roll. And Kevin Stefanski and him have an offense in place that should do some damage. I like the Browns secondary. I like their ability to run the ball. I think that they have a great player off the edge in Myles Garrett, and they're at home in this game. The Bengals got no work in with Joe Burrow. And depending on what happens in this game, upset alert, I like the Browns to beat the Bengals in their home opener 24-23. Browns win outright and go to 1-0 on the campaign. Here's a game that I'm watching, Jaguars and the Colts. Now, as we take a look at this game jumps out at me because I think the Colts are in a position here this year that they could be the worst team in all of football. The Colts are going to go with Richardson at quarterback, and without having their star running back, who's a really good player, Josh Jacobs shows up with the Raiders. Saquon Barkley gets his deal. But Jonathan Taylor, who's banged up, don't expect to see him. We won't see him until at least week 4. And I think that the repair here can't be done. I think that Jim Irsay overall is pretty much done. And I think that Jonathan Taylor is done with Jim Irsay. So this is going to be an ugly scenario. Now, the problem for the Colts is they don't need a quarterback. They have a quarterback in Anthony Richardson that they're going to want to go with all year here. So they're not going to be tanking for Caleb Williams, but they could be a team that could trade out of that pick if they don't have a good year. Jaguars on the road in this game just jump out at me. I have the Jaguars as a playoff team this year. I think the Jaguars will show up. The line opened up here, and now it's moving. We'll play it at 5. The Jaguars, a 5-point favorite on the road. I think Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars come out of the gate, make a statement, win, and cover that spread. Buccaneers, Vikings. Let's take a look at this one, as I'm a big fan, a really big fan of Baker Mayfield. I think that Baker Mayfield's been the type of player who's been discounted because he's played on so many bad teams throughout his career. And Baker Mayfield looked okay in the preseason where he had an opportunity to shine in a couple of events, a couple of games here. And I thought overall he played pretty well, especially in the dual practices that they had. Minnesota will play this as a 6-point favorite. Minnesota last year with Kirk Cousins winning 13 games and losing to the Giants early in the postseason. I think this is a statement game for the Vikings, but I like Baker Mayfield a lot. He's got good receivers on the edge. Mike Evans doesn't seem like he's going to be a Buccaneer at the end of this next year coming up. Godwin's a good player. I think that Baker Mayfield will keep this game close. I like the Vikings to win, but the Buccaneers to cover that 6-point spread. All right, here we go with the Saints and Derek Carr going up against the Titans. New Orleans -3 at home. You get 3 for being at home. I'm wondering what's going to happen until Alvin Kamara is ready to play for this team and is at full strength. The Titans and Mike Vrabel always have an energetic, angry defense and a team that's ready to come out of the gate and play hard. They have always been a well-coached team early in the season here. And there's a lot of hype behind Derek Carr winning over 10 games in that division. I think that Carr's a very good quarterback and will win that division and get this team to the playoffs and have a home playoff game. This is a tight game to pick. I'm going to give Carr and the Saints the benefit of the doubt there. I think that the Saints defense will get to Ryan Tannehill and find a way to cover that game. I like the Saints to beat the Titans 27-23. New Orleans goes to 1-0. All right, let's get to the Niners and the Steelers. Woo, this is a good one. The Niners are probably, let me be careful with this one. They're very dramatic as I record this podcast on YouTube. I can't tell you how many days this year I'd look down on my phone and it would blow up because there was something going on with the Niners backup quarterback. What's going on with Trey Lance? Sam Darnold. Oh, my God. Are they going to be ready to go with Purdy at quarterback? What about Nick Bosa and him holding out? This was a terrible offseason for the San Francisco 49ers. They still got great players, arguably one of the best rosters in football. But the problem with the Niners is this is a Steelers team that is always prepared under Mike Tomlin to start the season off. San Francisco is only a 2.5-point favorite. T.J. Watt coming off the edge. I like the secondary of the Steelers here. And Purdy, we saw a little bit of Brock Purdy here, but I don't believe in Mr. Irrelevant every week. Now, if the Niners didn't play in the NFC West, I wouldn't have the Niners making the playoffs possibly. I think the Cowboys and the Eagles are better than the 49ers. But the Niners play in the NFC West. And just by that alone, going up against Arizona and the Rams that I think are in some funky rebuild, I think the Niners are going to win double-digit games. I think they'll win 11, and the Niners will win the division and have a home playoff game. But this one's a tough one. This is a game I would pass on. Again, I don't gamble. I have gamblers on the show. I'm just giving you my opinion coming into this one. Steelers catching 2.5 at home. Just think the Niners have a much better roster. They'll eke this game out. The Steelers will make it interesting late. I'll go with the 49ers to win a tight one, 23-20 on the road. San Francisco wins and covers a very tight spread. Cardinals and the Commanders. Now you got to figure out that the Cardinals here are tanking. They get rid of Isaiah Simmons. Kyler Murray isn't available for a month. And I like the way the Commanders are playing with the chip on their shoulder. They got a brand new owner. The fans are energized and ready to come out again. And this is a franchise that it's been dormant since Daniel Snyder started to collapse that franchise over a decade ago. 7 is a little bit rich for me. If it was under 7, I think that the Commanders, I'd like them there. 7 points is a big number. Commanders and Howell at quarterback, that could be iffy. He could have a really good game. He could throw 2 interceptions in this game. I'm going to give the Commanders the benefit of the doubt here. I think Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio will have them ready to play. I'll go Commanders over the Cardinals, 31-21. Commanders win, and they cover the spread. Ravens at home against the Texans. Where are you with the Ravens, everyone? Again, once we get this YouTube going live, we'll be able to jump in the chat and talk and go toe-to-toe on this. Now you could just hit me up at JT the Brick on Twitter. This game fascinates me because Lamar Jackson has got Odell Beckham Jr., but Odell Beckham Jr. could be fragile. Can they run the ball? How long is it going to take Lamar Jackson to get to midseason form here? And the Texans are breaking out C.J. Stroud and one of the worst offensive lines in all of football. I mean, that offensive line is questionable going into this game. They have no work together, no chemistry at all. And I think the Ravens have one of the toughest defenses in football. It's going to be loud and insane. A lot of people have the Ravens going deep into the playoffs. I have them in the playoffs. I'll go with the Ravens. They're a 10-point favorite in this game. I think D'Amico's going to have the Texans ready to play on the road. Ravens win the game. Texans cover the spread. Packers-Bears in Chicago. Weather won't be an issue. Packers playing their first game with the starter, Jordan Love, going forward here. I like this game. I think this game's got a lot of juice to it. The Bears are a 1-point favorite. You usually get 3 for being at home. I think a lot of sharp money is going to come in on the Packers late in this game, and the Packers are going to try to run the ball. I think Jordan Love is going to want to match Justin Fields in the running game. And what's fascinating about the Bears, everyone, is they're going to try to dedicate this season to slowing down Justin Fields and running. Because if he continues to run like this, he's going to get hurt. And they're going to want to develop him more into a pocket passer. This isn't the week to do it. This is the week for the Bears to take back the rivalry, which Aaron Rodgers absolutely owned in his tenure there in Green Bay. I think the Bears got to do everything to treat this like a playoff game and win at all cost. And that will be Justin Fields running for 2 touchdowns on the ground. I think he'll have a long touchdown, 20-plus yards, and I think he'll have one in the red zone. I like the Bears to win this game. I'll go Bears 24, Packers 21. I think the crowd's going to go crazy in Chicago. I think Chicago's going to be improved. I like them in this game. Raiders, Broncos. As I record this podcast, which is on Tuesday night, depending on where you're watching it, I thought the Raiders had a really good preseason. I called the games on radio for them. They were healthy. Jimmy Garoppolo played a little bit. And close your eyes unless you're driving. Imagine this for the Raiders breaking the huddle. With Devontae Adams on the far left, Jacoby Myers in the slot, Michael Mayer, the tight end out of Notre Dame. Then we go to Hunter Renfrow in the other slot and Trey Tucker, the speed burner on the outside. Oh, nothing. The leading rusher in the NFL, Josh Jacobs, ready to go as he got in and signed a new 1-year deal. This game is tricky. The Broncos are a 3.5-point favorite. It got up to 4. I think some sharp money will come in on the Raiders. I think this game will go off around probably Broncos -3. To me, this is a pick'em game. It's a massively important game for the Raiders to quiet the noise in the background. The Raiders are better than a 6-win team. They lost 5 games last year where they had double-digit leads in the second half. That won't happen again. But the Raiders' schedule is arguably one of the toughest in football. Hard to touch this game because it's Sean Payton's first game. Russell Wilson lost a little bit of weight. He looks to be more fit. I think Russell Wilson's going to run the ball a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if Russell Wilson ran for 35, 40 yards and a touchdown, because I think that's the only way Denver can win this game. If Russell Wilson decides to run the ball and the Raiders just can't get a spy on him. I work for the Raiders. I don't pick for them or against them on any of these platforms here, but that's going to be one important game for Josh McDaniels and Sean Payton to start off the season. All right, let's pound through the rest of these games. Patriots and Eagles. Eagles went to the Super Bowl last year, 4-point favorite on the road against Bill Belichick. Bill is putting the defensive game plan together for Jalen Hurts. I think the Eagles have the second or third best roster in all of football. I think the Eagles are clearly a playoff team. I have them as a wild card team this year because I'm big on Dallas. Yeah, I'll get to that. This is tough because I think the Patriots are going to struggle this year at times, but they get the home opener, the Brady factor. As Brady comes back, this is a huge game for Belichick to also quiet the noise. I don't think Belichick needs to win another game the rest of his life, but he will win many as he tries to track down the great coaches before him. Bill Belichick is the greatest coach in NFL history. Sorry for Vince Lombardi, Don Shula, George Halas, Tom Landry. Belichick's better than them all. He'll have this defense ready to roll, but Philadelphia's defense is going to be too much for Mac Jones. I got Philly beating the Patriots 33-24. Eagles win the game, and they cover the spread. Dolphins-Chargers. When are the Chargers going to get lucky and not have all these injuries? When are the Chargers going to play a game where Derwin James is healthy, Mike Williams is healthy, Keenan Allen is healthy, Austin Eckler is healthy? Well, it could be around now. The Chargers, one of these years, even with their head coach, I nicknamed Boy Blunder, is going to get it right. Is this the year they get it right? There's no more excuses. They've made all the changes they can, and this is it for the head coach. If the coach doesn't win this year, he's going to get fired. I thought it was a good fit for Sean Payton to go to the Chargers and go work with Justin Herbert. But he wanted to go to Denver, bigger ownership, more control, and it's tough to work for Dean Spanos and the Chargers. They're not a well-run organization. But Justin Herbert's one of the greatest quarterbacks I've ever seen live. And I know a couple of people are going to be shocked when I say this, but I mean that. Justin Herbert, I believe, is the next edition of John Elway. I think he has the ability. He can make every throw, any throw that he wants. The Dolphins are going to come in here with the cheetah, Tyreek Hill, Waddle, the rest of this team overall, the offense, I think is very strong. Hoping and praying, that Tua is healthy this year. I don't want to see him concussed. I don't want to see him laying on his back in a spasm. I want to see Tua play the whole year at 100%. Man, if this game was in Miami, I'd pick Miami all day long. I'd pick Miami to win, but it's in L.A. against the Chargers, and the Chargers one of these years are going to get rolling. Big-time travel for Miami, going cross-country to get to L.A. I think the home field advantage, which isn't much in L.A. with the Chargers, will be enough in this game. I got the Chargers winning and not covering the spread. Chargers win, Dolphins playing it down to the last series. Call it 24-22, 24-23. Chargers eke one out at home. Chargers go to 1-0. Rams, Seahawks. Seahawks are -5. Geno's not going to sneak up on anybody this year. What a draft from Seattle 2 years ago to put this team in a position where they can be competitive for years to come. Rams, I saw the Rams at the joint practice with the Raiders. I was out at their facility, and I called their game where they lost to the Raiders in the preseason. Matthew Stafford looks good, everyone. He's healthy. He's really healthy without Cooper Kupp being anywhere near 100%. Aaron Donald's there with a bunch of no-name players. They just don't have the roster. I think the Seahawks win and cover this 5-point spread. Then we go to Sunday Night Football. Big Blue Wrecking Crew. Giants at home against the Cowboys. Look, I like rooting for the Giants in this rivalry game. Eli opened up the Palace in Dallas and signed the wall in the first ever game in Arlington and won that game. But I'm just on the Cowboys this year. I hate to say it. I got friends of mine who are Cowboy fans. They know I'm not a Cowboy fan. I'm not a Cowboy honk. I don't root for the Cowboys, but I know good football when I see it. The Dallas Cowboys are loaded this year. Now, you might say, how could you be loaded with Dak? Dak's going to turn it over. We didn't see Dak in the preseason, but Mike McCarthy's calling the plays. It's going to make it easier for Dak. The defense is unbelievable. They are strong up front, linebacker, and secondary. Parsons and Diggs turn it over, and when they turn it over, they want to score. I think the Giants, if Daniel Jones comes out and Barkley has a good game in front of that rabid fan base, can keep it close. But Dallas is a 3.5-point favorite on the road because I think they could be the best team in the NFC, better than Philly, better than San Francisco. I'll go with the Cowboys outright at MetLife, even though Aaron Rodgers wants to call it Jet Life. Cowboys win, and they cover the spread. And then finally, the Bills and the Jets. Monday Night Football. Saw a lot of good Aaron Rodgers. Maybe not all of it was great. We saw Hard Knocks. Got a little pissed off here the last couple of weeks. I think he's worried about that offensive line. That is not a great offensive line, and he could take a couple of big hits this year. I picked the Bills to win the Super Bowl the last 2 years in a row. I will not do that again. But I will pick the Bills to win most of their games. I think the Bills still have a window of opportunity to win the Super Bowl. Their roster is outstanding, arguably the best in the AFC. And let me get to the best rosters in all of football. I think it's the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Eagles, all teams in the NFC. And then when I go to the AFC, I got the Bills. And Cincinnati, I'm not a big Cincinnati guy. I like Burrow when healthy, but I don't think Cincinnati, they got a great wide receiver, great quarterback, but I don't think they're a super elite team. Kansas City is, but they're banged up as they start the season. And I like the Chargers roster, but they never remain healthy. Bills, Jets, Buffalo, and a 2.5-point favorite. Buffalo on a short week play the Raiders the following week for their home opener. I'm going to give the Jets here a little bit of hype and respect amongst Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to go with the Jets to win this game as an underdog, and here's why. I believe in the magic of Aaron Rodgers. I believe in their special teams and their defense. I believe they can run the ball. I think Rodgers can keep the chains going, and I think he could frustrate Buffalo, who doesn't have Von Miller. I got the Jets outright over the Buffalo Bills. Call it 28-26 in that range there, but who cares what the score is? It could be 3-2. I got the Jets Monday Night Football opening up the season with a rare upset over Buffalo. I love Buffalo, but I'm buying into the Aaron Rodgers hype. That's my first rendition of YouTube. We'll tell you about it more and more. What I'm trying to do is get you to subscribe, to build this channel. I'm in no rush. I've never been busier. I've never had more jobs. Life is good. But I think, as most people think, it's nice to have a platform that people can find you on. And I think people who want to find me more consistently at night can find me here at YouTube. Do me a favor, click subscribe and share this. I've been on the radio a long time. I'm asking for a favor. Sign up on YouTube, watch this on Twitter, share it with your friends, and I'll find a consistent spot to come here a couple of nights a week until we get this to a form. Look, it's not going to be Pat McAfee overnight, right? But it could be fun, and we could build up a nice audience here and have a lot of fun. I've done some great radio remotes on the road. I'm in Vegas. I hope to see you out here in Vegas, to come out for a game, to come out here for F1, to come out here for a college football or basketball game. And I thank you for following me here on YouTube and all my other platforms. Have a great night or rest of your day.